Hey guys, it's Greg with Apple Explained, and today we're going to talk about Apple's new moneymaker. Because although the company is generating tens of billions in revenue, their performance over the holiday season disappointed investors since a slowdown in the Chinese economy and slower than expected iPhone sales caused Apple to reduce their earning expectations by about $8 billion. So with the iPhone market becoming heavily saturated, Apple has been under pressure to find other ways to make money, especially since the iPhone is responsible for about 60% of Apple's total revenue. So in this video, we're going to discuss a market that has become Apple's second largest and fastest growing source of revenue. Now, this video topic was the second place winner of last week's voting poll, and if you didn't get to vote, make sure you're subscribed. That way, the polls will show up right in your mobile activity feed, and you can let me know which video you'd like to see next. So like I said before, we all know that the iPhone is Apple's cash cow, and it was the primary reason why the company was able to reach $1 trillion valuation in 2018. But it's unreasonable to believe that iPhone sales will continue to grow forever. And this is because a market for any piece of hardware will eventually become saturated, which means everyone who wants that device will eventually buy it, and sales will inevitably slow down. Now, it may not seem like that big of a deal since iPhone owners will continue to upgrade their device every 2 to 3 years, but that isn't the way companies like Apple see it. To them, if a market isn't growing, it's shrinking. And this is very frightening to investors since their money won't grow with a company that's stagnant. But I should mention that this is not a problem exclusive to Apple. It's a challenge every hardware company has to face at some point in their product's lifetime. So the question is, how can this issue be solved? Well, historically speaking, Apple has overcome market saturation and slowing hardware sales by creating new product categories to replace previous ones. For example, the iPhone replaced the iPod, and for many people, the iPad is replacing their computer. But I think Apple knows this won't be so easy to do with the iPhone, so they've come up with at least two different solutions for this problem. First, they've raised the average selling price of the iPhone from about $600 to almost $800, allowing them to generate more profit per sale. But that's not what this video is about. It's about Apple's second solution, capitalizing on their services business, which has become their new moneymaker. The market grew 24% in 2018, earning the company $37.2 billion, which represented 15% of their annual revenue. And while the services market isn't nearly as large as the iPhone, it is Apple's second largest business and almost matches the combined revenue of Mac and iPad. Not to mention, its growth shows no signs of slowing down, which is promising not only to Apple, but also to investors. But what exactly is Apple's services business? Well, it's comprised of their app stores, the iTunes Store, Apple Music, iCloud, Apple Pay, Apple Care, and licensing payments from third-party companies. But some of their services are more valuable than others. For example, the App Store is likely the most profitable, generating about $13.5 billion in 2018, which accounts for about 36% of Apple's total services business. And their second most profitable service may surprise you, because that title goes to licensing payments, which many people aren't even aware of. And a lot of that revenue is paid by Google to ensure their search engine remains the default for Siri and on Apple's Safari web browser. Now, the exact amount Google pays Apple isn't certain, but Goldman Sachs has estimated the fee to be about $9 billion, accounting for almost 25% of Apple's total services revenue for 2018. Apple even admitted that licensing fees were the primary reason for their services growth that year. And when it comes to more popular subscription services like Apple Music, the company experienced rapid growth of about 50% in 2018, but only takes about a 15% commission from the monthly payments. So although Apple Music is the most popular music streaming service, it only generated about $5 billion for Apple in 2018. And the situation is similar for things like Apple Care and iCloud, since the cost of maintaining these services is fairly high. But I want to talk about one service in particular that I think has a lot of potential, and that is Apple Pay. It was released over 4 years ago, but it still feels like a service in its infancy, and that's probably because it hasn't been adopted as quickly as Apple would have liked. Back in 2014, the company claimed that one day our phone would become our wallet, But that day doesn't even appear to be on the horizon, since Apple has faced so many challenges to get Apple Pay widely adopted, mainly due to competing payment services like Currency from the Merchant Customer Exchange, which has a huge influence over the mobile payments industry. They also signed exclusivity deals with major retailers like Best Buy, Walmart, CVS Pharmacy, and Rite Aid. In addition, other retailers like Target dragged their feet when it came to adopting Apple Pay, likely because they didn't have access to all the customer data they typically receive with traditional payment methods. So from the user's perspective, trying to use Apple Pay may require more effort than it's worth, because not only do you have to go through the process of registering your debit and credit cards, but you also have to figure out which retailers accept Apple Pay and which don't. And even when you can use Apple Pay, the cashier may be confused by how it works since they don't have any experience with it. So considering these inconveniences, it isn't too surprising that Apple Pay has only been used on 20% of iPhones. And I find this to be pretty disappointing, since using Apple Pay is more secure and efficient than using a physical card. So because of this, I think Apple Pay will eventually become a bigger player in the mobile payment market, and therefore become a much bigger source of revenue for Apple's services business in the future. Now, what are Apple's plans for the future of their services business? Because if they're going to continue growing in this market, then they'll need new services to offer users. And we've received hints from Apple that they're interested in creating original video content for a streaming service similar to Netflix and Hulu. Now, at first, I was a bit skeptical about this idea, since Apple has already released original shows like Carpool Karaoke and Planet of the Apps on Apple Music, which I thought were pretty mediocre. But Apple has invested over $1 billion in securing projects with some big names, including a multi-year deal with Oprah Winfrey, children's shows from the creators of Sesame Street, a series from La La Land director Damien Chazelle, a thriller series from M. Night Shyamalan, and a morning show featuring Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston. So it's clear Apple is serious about making quality video content for their streaming service, but only time will tell if these projects will turn out to be any good. But I should mention, Apple is in a unique position compared to Netflix or Hulu, because they have a large, entrenched user base who are more likely to use Apple's streaming services than their competitors. And we've already seen this situation play out with Apple Music, which grew to become the largest music streaming service, despite it being one of the last to enter the market. Another service Apple appears to be developing has to do with magazines. In fact, references to the service was found in the beta version of iOS 12.2. Specifically, a landing page was found in the developer code that referred to an Apple News magazine's internal seed, and suggested that payments for the service would be linked to your iTunes account. And this raised questions about how the service would be implemented. Would it be integrated with iTunes like Apple Music? Would it be a dedicated app like the current news service? Or would it be part of a bundle that combines services like Apple News, Apple Music, and their streaming service into one? And that brings me to perhaps the more unique approach Apple might take to their subscription business. Because there are rumors that suggest Apple may introduce a single subscription that combines its music service, video streaming service, and magazine service into one, which is similar to Amazon Prime. Now, there isn't any information about how much this subscription would cost, but ideally it would be less than paying for each service separately. And I can see the appeal this may have for Apple and their users, because not only is it a more seamless experience for users who want all the services Apple provides, but it encourages more Apple users to utilize the company's services. Now, there is one last subscription service Apple may be working on, and that is a gaming service. I should mention that there aren't many sources to verify this rumor, but I wanted to include it in this video because I could see the appeal of this type of service, since gaming on the iPad, iPhone, and iPod Touch is more popular than ever before, and it's the most popular category on the App Store. So the idea behind the gaming service is that Apple would partner with developers to offer access to a certain number of gaming apps, although it isn't clear how in-app purchases would be handled. So we'll definitely continue to see Apple focus on growing their services business to counteract any hardware slowdowns and to compete with some of the biggest names in the subscription industry. Now, I want to thank NordVPN for sponsoring this video. They're the most recommended VPN service by PCMag, and there's good reason for this. NordVPN ensures you always have a fast, anonymous connection to any server in 62 countries, so your internet activity stays private. Also, it's one of the few VPN services with a built-in ad blocker, and if you have any issues or questions, NordVPN provides 24/7 live chat and email support, which is perfect for people who've never used a VPN before. They were also kind enough to give Apple Explained viewers 75% off a 3-year plan, which is an insanely good deal that I highly recommend taking advantage of. So if you'd like to get started with NordVPN, just click the link in the description and use the code APPLE to get 75% off your 3-year plan and receive an extra month for free. Protect yourself online today. So that is Apple's new moneymaker, and if you'd like to vote for the next video topic, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.